What is a domain name and how do they work? So you've decided that it's time to start a website. Maybe you're a plumber, maybe you're a dentist, maybe you are a fitness coach. You might be a church or a ministry, whatever it is, you need to build a website. The first thing you're gonna need is a domain name. What is a domain name? A lot of people hear that, and if you're like me, it sounds a little weird, sounds a little more complicated than it really is. It's actually quite simple. In today's video, we are going to cover these topics: what a domain name is, how domains work, why you need a custom domain name, and important things to consider when choosing one. Essentially, a domain name is it's the unique name of your business, but it's more than that. It's how people can access your website through the internet. Okay, let me explain. Your website is made of files. No matter what type of website you have, every website is made up of files. Files of images, your text, the page layouts, the database to store what your website consists of. Okay, so your website is made up of files, and those sit on a server, basically like a storage unit of your website files. So you can take a unique domain name and you can point it to any server. Okay, so you're basically pointing the domain name to your website files. Every domain name must be unique, like a street address, in order to create a path or directions to your website that no one else can manipulate or purchase from under you. So a domain name is the name of your website, but it's also a unique identification that systems, search engines, and browsers use to be able to see or look at your website files. So that's a basic description of what a domain is and how it works. There's three things that you want to consider when choosing a domain name. The first thing that you need to consider when choosing your domain name is the professionalism and brand identity. Some website builders like Wix or Squarespace give you a free domain name, something like mybusiness.wix.com, as opposed to something more like mybusinessinmontana.com, right? Having a custom domain will look more professional than kind of a pre-made free domain. It elicits trust. It shows that you're more professional, and just when people are given if they Google something and they see a list of different domain names in front of them, they're more likely to click on a professionally branded domain than a free one. So that's one reason. Plus, you'll be able to use a custom domain for emails, like my name at mybusinessinmontana.com or info@mybusiness.com, whatever that is. You'll want to choose a domain name that's easy to remember, but also relative to what you do, where you are, or the services you're providing. For example, if I'm starting a fitness coaching business in Missoula, which is where I live, I'll want a domain name that implies that I'm a fitness coach, but also implies that I'm local to the area. So I'll probably want something like hammerfitnessmt.com. Your business name doesn't have to have your local area in it, but I do recommend doing that with the domain, and I'll tell you why in just a little bit. It's going to be different in different situations, though. So let's say that I am starting a gym and not a fitness coaching business. You might want the domain name to be more related to your business name rather than implying what you do or where you're at. Each type of business and also your goals, even your aspirations for where you're going to take that business, could be different. So let's say that instead of wanting to be like a personal fitness trainer in my area, I want to start a gym, and maybe I have plans to franchise that or put it in multiple locations. In that situation, I would say that you want your domain name to be more brand focused. So in that case, I would want something more like hammersgym.com instead of hammerfitnessmontana.com. If you are a nonprofit or a ministry and the brand name is important, you're going to be serving people or supporting people all over the world, maybe nationally. So the brand name is more important. then you'll want to choose something like that. You can have multiple domain names for one website. Now, what I don't recommend doing is going out and buying a bunch of different domains. I would say at most, try to stay with like 2 or 3, because in reality, there always has to be a default domain that your website is tied to on the server. So you will have kind of a default or base layer domain. Your other domains can only forward or point to that domain. So they're really just, again, brand purpose. There's no like technical upside to having multiple domains. There are things like perhaps you want to have a shorter domain name for email addresses. You could do that. You can forward that domain name to your default domain name. But for the most part, I would say try to just choose one, maybe a couple different variations of it. If you want to like buy the .com or .org version of those, so that you have your brand name and you own, .com, .org, .net, you can do that if you want to. It just doesn't give you any kind of benefits other than maybe peace of mind knowing you own those, or like I said, maybe an email address situation. The second important aspect when buying a domain name is control and ownership. This is important for me personally, as well as our company, CI Design. We really emphasize that all of our clients own everything related to their own websites. It's important that you own your domain name. It's in your account under your name, because you want to be able to point that domain to any server. You don't want to be tied to a specific website software forever. And you also want to make sure that if anything happens to your website on a server, that you have the ability to point your domain even to like a temporary landing page elsewhere if needed. There's all kinds of situations that I've seen over the 15 years of being in this business, where I've seen situations where nobody knows where the domain name is owned. Some other, freelancer or web designer bought it for them a long time ago, and they don't have access, and the site is down, and we need to get into the domain to point it correctly to the server or fix something that's going on there. There's lots of reasons that I could, lots of scenarios or examples I could give you to prove this point. But at the end of the day, really just don't let other people buy the domain for you. Buy it yourself, know you have access to it, and save those login details. The final thing that we'll talk about for the purposes of today's video is search results on Google. Does your domain name, does the name you choose for your website, that unique identification that points to the server, does it affect search results? The answer is twofold. It's a yes and no answer. Search results are based on the content of your website, not the domain. You need to buy a domain name that is relative to who you are and what you do from a brand standpoint, not a keyword related standpoint. Let me explain. So while the phrasing of your domain does not have a technical impact on the search engines and where it ranks, your click-through rate does. So when you submit your website to Google and it is starting to rank, let's say it's on the bottom of page 1, whatever it is, click-through rate, the amount of people who click on your listing on Google, it does have weight with Google. One thing you can control early on is your domain name. How does someone perceive your domain in the list of all the others? So let's say that it is important for someone to see that you are a local provider. They're looking for a plumber in Chicago, and your domain name is jacksplumbingchicago.com versus just Roto-Rooter.com, which is like a national or maybe even international plumbing company. I don't know. I just see them all the time. So they have locations everywhere. The difference is that perception. When someone Googles plumbers in Chicago, if they see jacksplumbingchicago.com, then they see Roto-Rooter, and they're the type of person where it's important for them that their service provider is local, which is important to a lot of people. They may click on yours versus Roto-Rooter. Okay, there's lots of other things that come into play there. Ad taglines, search engine titles on your website, like on page search engine optimization, things like that. But just for the purposes of this video, without getting too deep into SEO, because I can talk about that all day, the click-through rate is the only time that your domain matters as far as Google goes, okay, or Google search results. So just to recap, professionalism and brand identity. Think about whether you want to be perceived as a local provider or whether just the name of your business or ministry or brand matters most. Think about ownership. Do you really own your domain? Make sure you're buying it for yourself. You're not letting someone else buy it for you or just getting a free one from a DIY builder like Wix or Squarespace. And then finally, consider how is your website going to stand up in the click-through rate metrics with Google. A domain name is more than just an address. It's an investment in your online property. Okay, it's your online identity. It's the cornerstone of your website. It influences your brand's professionalism, credibility, and visibility. And by choosing the right domain, you will set yourself up for a successful foundation online. I hope this has been helpful. Feel free to leave any comments for me or questions. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you for joining me today. If you'd like to see more videos from me on topics like website design, search engine optimization, Google Ads, online business consulting, and more, please subscribe to my new channel here, like this video, and visit our marketing agency website, CI Design, anytime, link in the description below. I'll be posting new videos on a regular basis. Thank you.